Hello, 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 my name is Close Shave Dave and welcome back to Resident Evil 5, where we're going to continue reading the files. Because I quite like the lore, and if you're here, you do too. So let's get right into it. Tricell. I will pop the volume down a bit because the music is a little bit deafening for me to just be reading. Tricell is a conglomerate organisation comprised of shipping, natural resources development, and pharmaceutical divisions. Tricell's history dates back to the period known as the Age of Exploration. The forebearer to Tricell was Travis Trading, a company owned by the wealthy European merchant Thomas Travis. This company profited greatly from expansive trading with the Orient and laid the groundwork for what would become Tricell's shipping division. Travis Trading entered the 19th century as a profitable trading venture. In the 1800s, Henry Travis, the youngest of 7 siblings, invested much of his own fortune into the exploration of Africa. Pardon me. During this period, the exploits of explorers like David Livingstone were creating quite a stir in the newspapers of the day. Henry's expedition was inspired by these accounts, and his decision was to have a great impact on Travis Trading's future. Henry made 5 expeditions to the African continent in order to explore all of its regions. The extensive funds of the Travis family allowed him to continue his research into Africa even through times when results were not forthcoming. After his 5th and final expedition in Africa, Henry Travis returned to his home country a full 34 years after he had left it. Henry compiled the records of the expeditions into an impressive 72-volume set entitled Survey of Natural History. These books covered everything from animals, plants, insects, minerals, and topography to the native inhabitants and their cultures, histories, and traditions. These books also contained extensive records detailing the folklore of various people throughout the continent. These tomes were a verifiable encyclopedia of the African continent. Henry's survey was published in its entirety, but his meticulous details were viewed as products of creative license and an overzealous imagination. The books were ultimately discredited by the scientific community. Considered to be a novelty item, only a few copies of the entire series were ever published. Hello, Oreo. The shock of being shunned by the scientific community sent Henry into a deep state of depression. He passed away only 2 years after his return from Africa. It is now believed that the head of Travis Trading at that time, Henry's eldest brother, purposely spread the rumour that Henry's books were nothing more than fiction. The thought being that he did this because he wanted Travis Trading to be the only company that would exploit the information contained within these books. Of particular interest was the topographical information contained in volumes 17 through 24. By the end of the 19th century, Travis Trading had begun to exploit the mineral resources of Africa all over the continent. The company was mining for precious metals and developing oil and natural gas field. Meanwhile, the company's profits continued to soar. These operations formed the basis of Tricell's Natural Resources Development Division. Travis Trading built a firm foothold in Africa, and beginning in the mid-20th century, they had begun to actively collect samples of plants, animals, and insects. Henry's books were instrumental in guiding these endeavours. The collected specimens were used in pharmaceutical research, and before long that research brought commercial success and subsequent founding of Tricell's pharmaceutical division. Travis Trading was the basis for the shipping division. The Natural Resources Development Division was born from the information contained in Henry's journals. The specimens obtained from the African fauna were used to create the independent pharmaceuticals division. By the 1960s, these 3 divisions of Travis Trading were firmly established, and they formed a conglomerate under the name Tricell. The Travis family, however, were not the only ones privy to the knowledge of Henry's journals. Umbrella's founder, Oswell E. Spencer, was interested in them for the folklore recorded therein. Of particular interest were the accounts of the Nidipayas rituals. Spencer hypothesized that the flower used in these rituals held significance and this ultimately led to the discovery of the progenitor virus. Jill Valentine. Listed within the file is a general background information overview of former STARS agent Jill Valentine. As pieced together from various sources, the information listed here is neither complete nor should it be used as psychological analysis of the subject. When a crisis situation arises, few soldiers excel to the level of Jill Valentine. She is proficient in the use of various firearms, is a master of lockpicking, and is skilled in the disposal of explosives. Jill's talents made her an integral component of any fighting force. Like Chris Redfield, Jill was a member of the STARS Alpha team. She was also involved in the tragedy at the Arklay Research Facility, also known as the Mansion Incident. During the incident, Jill and Chris operated independently, but together discovered the truth behind the facility. They learned that Barry Burton was not really a traitor, but was being controlled by Albert Wesker, captain of the Alpha team. In addition to Wesker's machinations, they also learned the source of the zombie outbreak was due to the release of the T-virus, and that Umbrella was more than just an ordinary pharmaceutical company. What Jill learned at the Arklay Research Facility would have profound repercussions on the rest of her life. Following their return from the mansion, Chris and Jill attempted to inform the authorities of Umbrella's activities. For all their good intentions, they were met with no movement towards any official investigation into the company. Fed up with the lack of response, the two took it upon themselves to investigate Umbrella. They concentrated their efforts on Umbrella's main base of operations in Europe. As a STARS member entrusted with protecting Raccoon City, Jill chose to remain in the city for the time being and investigate the Umbrella Research Facility, therefore rendezvousing with Chris in Europe. This decision led to her involvement in the Raccoon City incident. During her investigation, rodents infected with the T-virus from the Arklay Research Facility began to spread the virus into the city. The virus quickly spread, infecting a majority of the residents. Umbrella, the perpetrators behind this incident, reacted swiftly. Umbrella sent in the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, UBCS, to handle the situation, and they also dispatched the bioweapon Nemesis T-Type to take out any surviving STARS members who Umbrella now considered a threat. Jill attempted to escape from Raccoon City, all the while being hunted by the Nemesis T-Type. During this time, she encountered a member of the UBCS team, Carlos Oliveira. Carlos claimed his team was on a rescue mission to save any survivors in Raccoon City, having no reason to doubt that mission's purpose. He proposed to help Jill escape. Jill, on the other hand, had her doubts. However, the situation had reached critical proportions, and Jill did not have the luxury of time. The US government was planning on containing the spread of the virus by launching a special missile strike on the city called Operation Bacillus Terminate. When Jill became infected with the T-virus as a result of Nemesis T-Type, she despaired of ever being able to get out alive. Fortunately for her, Carlos was there to help. Carlos obtained a cure to the T-virus infection and gave it to Jill. After her recovery, she worked with Carlos and they successfully escaped from Raccoon City. In 2003, after Operation Talos, Jill and Chris became two of the original 11 founding members of the BSAA and joined them in their fight against bioweapons and bioterrorism around the world. Chris and Jill stopped bioweapons in Asia, destroyed bioweapons labs in South America, arrested smugglers in Europe, and patrolled the world in an attempt to stamp out all bioweapons. Throughout their activities, while they may have suspected the long fingers of Umbrella as being involved, they never had any conclusive proof. Those long fingers, however, would turn out to be connected to the hands of Umbrella's founder, Oswald E. Spencer. Sorry, I'm having trouble talking for some reason. The pair received intel on Spencer's whereabouts and rushed off to arrest him, only to find their former captain and hated enemy, Albert Wesker. Seeing Spencer's crumpled corpse on the ground, the two changed their plans to arrest Wesker instead. In a 2-on-1 fight, Chris and Jill should have had the advantage, but Wesker's strength and agility were well beyond that of any normal human. For all their training, Jill and Chris were no match for Wesker. As Wesker was about to end Chris's life, Jill made the ultimate sacrifice, lunging at Wesker, and she threw both herself and him out of a window and over the side of a cliff. Chris could do nothing as he watched his partner fall to her death. BSAA launched a full-scale search operation, but neither Jill's body nor any of her personal effects were ever recovered. On November 23, 2006, Jill Valentine was officially declared dead, and her name was added to the list of BSAA members who died in the line of duty. But Jill's story did not end there. The fall did not kill Jill nor Wesker, though badly hurt and unconscious. Jill was saved by Wesker. After giving her the medical treatment she required, he placed her in a cryogenic sleep. Once the Ouroboros plan was finalized, Wesker intended to use her as the first test subject. This was Wesker's way of exacting his revenge. Fortunately for Jill, luck was on her side. The apparatus monitoring her vital signs detected some abnormalities. Something was happening inside Jill's body, and Wesker's curiosity was piqued. Further investigation showed that a mutated form of the T-virus was still inside her body. It was a remnant from her infection, Raccoon City. The cure she was given was supposed to have eradicated all traces of the virus in her body, but instead it caused the virus to go into a dormant state. Her extended period in a cryogenic sleep somehow reactivated the virus. Shortly after being reactivated, the T-virus completely disappeared from her body, but it left something else in its place. Wesker found that Jill's body now contained powerful antibodies to the virus. All those years the T-virus was inside her body forced it to develop a defense system that was nothing short of miraculous. This discovery would help further Wesker's ambitions. The development of the Ouroboros virus, the centerpiece of the Ouroboros plan, had proven to be quite difficult. The Ouroboros virus, developed from the progenitor flower, proved to be too poisonous to humans to be of much use. Instead of spurring the next step in human evolution, it only invited death. Wesker theorized that using Jill's antibodies could make the virus less poisonous. He kept Jill alive solely to produce antibodies for his research. Jill, who had reviled bioweapons and devoted her life to eradicating them, was ironically being used to develop the most terrible bioweapon of all. After much research and experimentation, Wesker finally perfected the Ouroboros virus. Jill's participation in its development meant she was no longer a suitable test subject. Pure and adulterated antibodies with high resistance to the virus permeated her body. Wesker decided he would find a suitable use for her elsewhere. During the research into the progenitor virus, an ancillary chemical was discovered. The researchers referred to it simply as P30. When administered to test subjects, it would not only give them superhuman control, but also rendered them highly susceptible to control. P30 was the ultimate performance enhancer. The aims of the Ouroboros plan were to create a new breed of humans. So P30's application in this plan was inconsequential. However, for the time being, it could be marketed as a product and garner additional funding. Research into creating the ultimate soldier who didn't resist orders was carried out simultaneously on Las Plagas and P30. Unfortunately, the latter had a severe drawback. The effects of P30 would only last for a very short time. An injection of P30 was metabolized and expelled by the body at an expeditious rate, requiring re-administration of the drug at frequent intervals. This greatly lessened the viability of such a product as a long-term performance enhancer. The only counter to such a drawback was to attach a device to the subject that would continually administer the drug. While P30's effects were brief, it was still a powerful and effective drug. The effects of continual administration were untested, so in order to research this aspect further, an administration device was attached to Jill. I'm so sorry. An external device was attached to Jill's chest that would continually administer the drug to her body, with her free will constantly being usurped. She remained a servant to Excella and Wesker until Chris and Sheva destroyed the administration device. Excella Gion. The Gione, Gion probably. The Gion family is well known and respected throughout Europe for their successful export-import business. Her grandmother, being from the Travis family, the founders of Tricell, has endowed Excella with quite a noble and storied lineage. Blessed with model-like beauty and raised in such an aristocratic family, has led to her being haughty towards those around her, especially men. But it was neither Excella's looks nor family background that got her to where she is today. Gifted with a keen intellect and inheriting her father's business acumen, Excella quickly breezed through school and enrolled in a university at a young age. There she majored in genetic engineering, and her talents were recognized by her grandmother's family. With her connections, she was able to enter Tricell's pharmaceutical division at the age of 18. Although she was a gifted member of Tricell's founding family, she was still a Gione, an offshoot of the famed Travis family. Even with all the research teams at Tricell's disposal, she was only given one. Excella viewed this act as a slight. While still feeling indignant over this affront, she was approached by Albert Wesker. Wesker's interest in Excella was piqued by her intelligence and character. It was at this time he provided her with all the information she had concerning the T-virus and other research. Excella was now armed with the tools to make the advances to her career that she desired. She used the information and technology she obtained from Wesker to advance Tricell's bioweapons division exponentially. In a fortunate turn for Tricell, Umbrella, who had previously dominated the bioweapons market, had gone bankrupt, greatly increasing Tricell's sway in this area. Thanks to Excella's efforts in expanding Tricell's market share, she was given more of a voice within the company. Before long, she was making key decisions that would affect the fortunes of the pharmaceutical division. This was precisely as Wesker had intended. Excella then set her sights on the position of CEO of the Tricell Africa division. Her adroit use of flattery and intimidation soon landed her that powerful position. It is now believed that it was Wesker who suggested Excella take over Tricell Africa. He exploited her romantic interest in him and was able to use both her and Tricell Africa to further his Ouroboros plan. Excella's first order of business as Tricell's Africa CEO was to restore the abandoned Umbrella Africa research facility. As the facility where research on the progenitor virus had been carried out, its use in the completion of the Ouroboros plan was vital. Following the facility's restoration, Ricardo Irving was employed to sell bioweapons in order to secure funding for the research being carried out on the Ouroboros virus. As the Ouroboros plan neared completion, Excella began to fancy herself as the queen in the new world order that would follow the plan's execution. Unfortunately for her, those dreams were dashed when the man that was to be her king injected her with the Ouroboros virus. Albert Wesker. The mansion incident, the tragedy at Raccoon City, Rockfort Island, Umbrella's Antarctic research facility, and the Umbrella Caucasus research facility in Russia, the kidnapping of the US president's daughter, one man was involved either directly or indirectly with each and every one of those incidents. Albert Wesker. The motivation behind all of Wesker's actions can be found in this current incident in Africa. Wesker had already obtained samples of various organisms and viruses, including the T virus, the G virus, the T Veronica virus, and Las Plagas. All of these were eagerly and enthusiastically received by Umbrella's former rival companies, who compensated him greatly for each. With wealth, power, and glory, Wesker appeared to have everything a person could ever want. Wesker, however, was not interested in material gains. An all too familiar sense of trepidation continued to gnaw at him, the source of this uneasiness being Umbrella's founder, Oswald E. Spencer. During his time at Umbrella, Wesker could never ascertain what Spencer's true intentions were. Spencer's extensive funding of BOW research was unheard of in the field. The whole reason for producing bioweapons was that it could be done relatively inexpensively when combined with a normal weapons delivery system. Spencer's extreme investment in BOWs seemed unnecessary. Why would Spencer need such BOWs in the first place? To find the answer to that question, Wesker joined the Umbrella Information Department. Even after the downfall of Umbrella, these doubts continued to haunt Wesker. To find the answers he needed, Wesker began to search out Spencer. The only problem was that even before Umbrella's dissolution, Spencer had removed himself from Umbrella's day-to-day operations. Wesker had to use every resource at his disposal. Pardon me. All his time, money, and connections. Eventually he ascertained Spencer's long-hidden whereabouts. On the first night of autumn, as thunder and lightning raged in the skies above, Wesker arrived at the ancient castle in Europe where Spencer resided. Wesker expected the old man to be surprised by his presence, but instead the withered old eyes of Spencer lit up with dark delight as he spoke. "You're back." The words barely audible amidst his cough-racked laugh. If Wesker had his doubts about Spencer before, he didn't know what to make of him now. He only knew at that moment that the seemingly feeble old man had been in control of everything that had transpired at Umbrella. Even Wesker's own actions through the years had been controlled and manipulated by this decrepit old man. With this sudden realization, Wesker now knew the source of his anxiety for all those years. Appearing to read Wesker's thoughts, Spencer laid out everything to him. The development of bioorganic weapons was only a means of achieving his true goal: the forced evolution of mankind via viruses. It would be the end of the current form of humanity and the birth of a new superior human race. With this new race he would build his utopia, with himself as a god on Earth. In order to realize this dream, he required 3 things. 1. The progenitor virus. Without this key component, his dreams would be no more than abstract ideas. Once he discovered the progenitor virus, he had the foundations on which all his subsequent plans would be built. 2. The Umbrella Corporation. The manufacture of bioweapons was the perfect method of conducting his research on the progenitor virus. Any profits gained through Umbrella's research were secondary to his true goal. The third thing Spencer needed in his grand vision was Wesker himself. Spencer knew what was required for his utopia. He also knew he would need a new human race. But what would that new breed of humans be like? The progenitor virus would spur natural selection upon the population. That was the fundamental premise behind Spencer's plan. But if the new breed of humans brought about by this selection process were unwilling to share in his vision, then there would be unwanted complications. This fourth stage of evolution would give the surviving humans increased strength and intelligence, but it would not affect a person's knowledge, logic, or general character. If any indolent or unsavory individuals survived to be a part of this new race, it would be a blight on Spencer's utopia. Spencer was not about to have his vision stained, so he enacted a plan to ensure that that would not happen. This plan was called the Wesker Plan, which was named after the chief researcher at the time. Alex Wesker. Okay. According to this plan, hundreds of children born of parents of superior intellect from all nationalities would be collected. Jesus. If their knowledge, logic, and self-will could not be altered by genetic manipulation, then Spencer himself would instill his values into these children by whatever means he deemed necessary. These children were all given the surname Wesker, and after completion of their indoctrination manipulation, they were placed into select controlled environments in various locations around the world, ever under Umbrella's watchful eye. The children themselves were to be kept unaware. They were being monitored. With Umbrella's concealed aid, they all received the best educations available in the fields they pursued. After a few years, one child who showed particular promise was sent to Umbrella's training facility in Raccoon City. This Wesker's child's name was Albert. Spencer was quite pleased by all of Albert's actions, and if the other Wesker children were like him, Spencer would have nothing but quality individuals for his new race of humanity. So Wesker wasn't hatched. He was just manipulated. Spencer then enacted the second phase of his plan. All the Wesker children would be administered in an experimental virus. This virus was administered to screen out the more gifted of the Wesker children. Some took the virus on the recommendation of a friend. Others were given the virus as part of their medical treatments. Still, others had it forcibly administered to them. Albert Wesker was no different. His partner William Birkin gave him the experimental virus and he administered it to himself. This screening process turned out to be a little too selective. Most of the Wesker children died, leaving only a few survivors. Albert Wesker was one of those survivors, and he disappeared shortly after. Spencer was unconcerned by this development. There was a fail-safe device attached to every Wesker Spencer's existence. This was the discomfort Albert had felt throughout his life. All Wesker children were programmed to seek Spencer out. Which manifested itself as a growing anxiety within each of the subjects. Just as Spencer had predicted, Albert soon came to him. Unfortunately, Spencer had made one miscalculation. His failsafe only worked for as long as it remained a mystery. As soon as the mystery was revealed, Wesker no longer had a need to restrain himself. All that was impeding Wesker was a feeble old man on death's doorstep. The right to be a god, that right is now mine. With these words, Wesker broke down the shackles that Spencer laid on him. It was only random chance that brought his former subordinates Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine to Spencer's mansion at that exact time, but Wesker took it as a sign. The weak would always resist the will of the chosen. With renewed purpose, Wesker reflected on his own evolution and the evolution of the human race. After the incident at the Spencer estate, he went underground and used the news of his death to veil the activities. He had achieved his goal of obtaining the virus and capital he needed from his position at Umbrella. Next, he put all his efforts into bringing his Ouroboros plan to fruition, and thereby setting himself up as a god over the new generation of humanity. So, they're all batshit. So, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next episode. Goodbye.